You should have just signed it, Sloan. Nobody wanted it to go this far. That was my brother's wife talking, Brielle. She said it in the same flat, patient voice she used at Thanksgiving when she asked if anybody wanted more green beans. I heard it from the floor of my own kitchen, with my cheek pressed into the grout and the taste of copper filling the back of my mouth. My brother Desmond had one knee planted in the small of my back. His hand was buried in my hair, grinding the side of my face into the tile. A pipe wrench lay 2 feet from my fingers, where he dropped it after the first swing. And Brielle just stood there in the doorway with her purse still on her shoulder, not screaming, not pulling at him. She had her phone out, held low against her hip, and her thumb was already moving. What neither of them understood, what nobody in that house ever understood about me, was that I had spent 7 years being taught how to survive a person who is trying to drown me. That is literally the job. And the smart speaker on my kitchen counter had been listening to every word since the second the door frame came apart. Before I take you back and show you how a girl from a marina town ends up bleeding on her own floor while her brother's wife dials a phone, do me a favor, my friend. Tell me where you're listening from and what time it is where you are. I read those. And if you've ever had somebody with your own last name look you in the eye and treat your life like a line of credit, hit that like button and stay with me, because this one does not end the way they planned it. Astoria, Oregon. 91 days before the wrench, I came off a cutter patrol at 0600 on a Tuesday, with salt crust in my eyebrows and 3 months of mail waiting in a plastic bin. My apartment sat above a shuttered cannery on the east end of town. 2 rooms, a radiator that knocked like a man in a trunk, and a window that looked straight out at the Columbia River bar, where the river fights the ocean and usually wins. I liked it. It was mine. I lived off base, off station, I should say, because the Coast Guard doesn't do gates the way the Army does. No guard shack, no sentry, just a deadbolt, a stairwell, and me. I made coffee. I sat on the floor because I hadn't bothered with a couch yet, and I started opening mail. Water bill, a postcard from my dentist, a credit union envelope with my name spelled right and my address spelled right, and a sentence in the second paragraph that stopped my heart in my chest like a hand closing around it. Loan number ending 4,471. Co-borrower, Sloan R. Marchetti. Principal balance, $141,200. Collateral, 2 marine travel lifts and a leasehold interest in Slip Row C, Marchetti Marine Services. I read it 4 times. My name was on a loan for a business I had never worked at, for equipment I had never touched, secured by a marina I hadn't set foot on since my father's funeral. I want you to understand what I felt, because it wasn't rage. Not yet. It was that specific cold water feeling you get about a half second before you realize you're actually in trouble in the surf. Everything goes very quiet and very organized. You stop thrashing. You start counting. 94 days earlier, before the patrol, I had left a limited power of attorney with my mother. 1 page, notarized at a strip mall next to a nail salon. It authorized her to sell my father's old F-250, the green one with the tailgate he kept meaning to fix, because I couldn't be there, and the truck was rotting in her driveway, and she said it broke her heart to look at it every morning. 1 truck, 1 signature. 90 days at sea. I sat on that floor with the cannery gulls screaming outside my window, and I did the math on what my family had done with the piece of paper I gave my own mother out of kindness. They came Thursday. I heard the Suburban before I saw it, that big lazy V8 idle rolling up the alley, and then 2 doors slamming out of sync. Nobody buzzed. Desmond had a way of coming up a stairwell that shook the pictures my brother went about 240, most of it shoulder, and he'd never in his life climbed a set of stairs quietly. He knocked once and opened the door in the same motion, the way he'd been opening doors on me since I was 6. Brielle came in first anyway. She always let him make the noise and then walked in ahead of it. She wore a cream-colored coat and boots with no salt line on them, which in Astoria in February means you don't walk anywhere. Her perfume came in with her and settled over my whole apartment like a wet towel. "God, Sloan," she said, looking around at the bare walls, the sleeping bag, the 2 milk crates. "You live like you're about to be extradited." Desmond dropped a folder on my counter. Then he dropped a white paper bag next to it, grease already blooming through the bottom. "Fish and chips," he said. "From Roosters. You used to love that place." "I didn't love that place. I hated that place." I had told him I hated that place at least 9 times across 28 years, and he had never once heard me, because hearing me was not a thing he had any reason to do. I opened the folder. It was an affirmation of authority. 3 pages. There was a lot of legal language in there designed to be boring, but underneath the boring, it said one simple thing: that I, Sloan R. Marchetti, hereby ratify and affirm that the undersigned attorney in fact acted within the scope of authority granted and that the obligations incurred thereunder were and remain authorized by me. Translation, my friend. Sign here and admit the forgery wasn't a forgery. Because here's the part they hadn't said out loud yet. I flipped to the last page of the loan packet and found the signature block. My name, in handwriting that leaned the wrong way. My initials in 3 boxes. And under it, a notary stamp from a title office in Warrenton, dated the 11th of a month I spent 400 miles offshore in the Gulf of Alaska with no cell service and a duty log that could prove every hour of it. I looked up. The bank flagged it. Brielle's face didn't change, but something behind it recalculated. That was the tell. That was always the tell, with her a half-second pause while she swapped scripts. There's a review, she said. It's routine. It's a fraud referral. It's a review, Sloan. Desmond leaned his hip against my counter and folded his arms. The lift went down in October, both of them. You know what a travel lift costs? You know what it costs to have every boat in the yard stuck in the water for a season? He said it like I'd personally sunk them. Mom did what she had to do. It's family money. It's Dad's yard. It's Dad's yard, I said. It was never my yard, and it was never my signature. You're on the deed, Brielle said quickly. Partially. I'm on nothing. Dad left the yard to Desmond. I got the house on Alameda, and I signed it back to Mom 2 weeks after the funeral so she'd have somewhere to live. Nobody said anything for a second. The radiator knocked twice. Then Desmond reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out my father's whistle. I want you to sit with that for a second, because I'm still sitting with it 3 years later. My dad was a Coast Guard chief warrant officer for 22 years. He carried a brass rescue whistle on a flat green lanyard, the old kind, dented on one side from a hoist cable. He wore it under his shirt at his own retirement ceremony. He wore it in the hospital. When he died, I found it in a coffee can in the garage, and I put it in a wooden box with his folded flag, and I kept that box on the only shelf I owned. Desmond had it hooked around 2 fingers, swinging it a little, like a set of car keys. Mom thought you'd want to be reminded. He said, what family actually means. He'd been in my apartment, or she had. Somebody with a key I'd given out for a plant watering favor 2 years ago had opened my box and taken my father's whistle out of it and driven it across the bridge to use it on me. I didn't move. My heart rate did not go up. I want to be honest with you about that, because a lot of people think being calm means you're not hurt. I've pulled a man out of a rolling 40-foot sea with a broken collarbone, and my pulse was steadier than it was standing in that kitchen. Calm isn't the absence of pain. Calm is the only thing that keeps you from making a fatal mistake while you're in it. I put 2 fingers on the folder and slid it back across the counter until it hung off the edge. No, I said. Brielle laughed. It came out thin. You don't get to just say no. I just did. Take your food with you. Desmond straightened up off my counter, and his face went the color it used to go in the hallway of the house on Alameda, that deep brick red that started at his neck. You selfish little... He caught it. He actually caught it, which surprised me. He set the whistle down on my counter, very deliberately, on top of the grease stain from the bag. You know what they do to Brielle if this goes to the DA? Do you? She notarized it. There it was. The whole thing, finally, in the open. They didn't need my money. They needed my permission, after the fact, because a forged federal insured loan document with a false notarization is a felony with Brielle's name and stamp number on it, and the only human being on earth who could make that felony evaporate was the woman whose name they stole. I looked at my brother. Then she shouldn't have notarized it. They left the food. They took the folder. Desmond hit the stairwell hard enough to rattle the fixture, and I stood there listening to the Suburban pull out, and then I picked up my father's whistle and held it in my fist until the brass got warm. That night, my phone lit up on the floor beside me. A photo message from Brielle. It was a picture from my dad's funeral, me in dress blues at the graveside, 25 years old, holding the flag against my chest. Across the bottom, she'd typed in red block letters. He would be humiliated by what you're doing to this family. I did not cry. I did not throw the phone. I screenshotted it, saved it to a folder I named Documentation, and blocked her number. Friday morning, I opened my door to leave for the station and stopped with my boot in the air. Somebody had left my father's shadow box on the mat, the one with his ribbons, his warrant, his hoist wings. The glass was cracked from corner to corner, and it had been left face up so I'd see it. There was no note. There didn't need to be one. I carried it inside with a dish towel so I wouldn't put my prints on the frame, set it on the counter, photographed it from 4 angles with a ruler in the shot, and then I sat down and made a list. Because that's what you do, my friend. When it gets bigger than your feelings, you stop feeling and you start writing. Sunday, my mother called. I let it ring. Then I answered. Because there's a version of me that will always answer. Sloan. She did that sigh she does, the long one that arrives before any actual information. I am so tired. She didn't ask if I was home safe from 3 months at sea. She didn't ask about the patrol, or the 2 people we took off a disabled crabber in December, or whether I was sleeping. My mother has never once asked me a question that didn't have a favor at the end of it. Mom, you signed my name. I signed a paper. You gave me the authority. For a truck. Don't be so literal, it's ugly on you. Her voice sharpened, the exhaustion evaporating in about a quarter of a second, like it always did. Your brother is drowning. Do you understand that? He has 11 employees. He has your father's name on the sign out front. And you're going to let some bank clerk put his wife in a courtroom over a technicality because you can't stand to be inconvenienced. It's not a technicality, it's a felony. Why do you always have to turn everything into a federal case, Sloan? And there it was, that phrase. I want to tell you what happened in my head when she said it, because this is the part of the story that matters more than the wrench. I was 17 again, standing in the hallway of the house on Alameda, with my back against the doorframe. Desmond was 25 and had just come home from somewhere he shouldn't have been, and I'd made the mistake of asking a question about it in front of Mom. He shoved the bedroom door shut to end the conversation. My right hand was on the jam. I heard it before I felt it. 3 fingers and a metacarpal. And in the car on the way to Columbia Memorial, my mother did not touch my hair. She did not tell me to breathe. She reached across the console and took hold of my left wrist, the good one, and dug her thumbnail in until it left a crescent, and she said, "You caught it in the truck door. It slipped. Say it back to me." I was 3 weeks out from my Coast Guard physical. I had been swimming since I was 9. That hand cost me a summer, cost me my qualification date, and I sat in a plastic chair in an emergency room at 17 years old and lied about how it happened because my mother told me my brother's future mattered more than my bones did. She never asked, in 11 years, whether it healed right. It didn't, by the way. Cold weather still finds it. I came back to my kitchen in Astoria with the phone against my ear and my mother still talking. "Sloan, are you even listening to me?" "I heard you," I said. "You said say it back to me." She stopped. She actually stopped. "You have no idea what I've sacrificed." I hung up. Then I powered the phone all the way down and set it face down on the counter, and the apartment was so quiet I could hear the river. My friend, if you are listening to this and you know exactly what it is to be the family's emergency exit, the one who gets called when there's a bill and forgotten when there's a birthday, do something for me right now. Put the words "I survived" down in the comments. I read every one of them. I need to know I'm not the only one who had to become a stranger to stay alive. Hit like and subscribe, because what they did next is the reason I'm still here to tell you any of this. Monday, I hired a lawyer. Her name was Odalis Prieto, and her office was above a tax place on Commercial Street, and it smelled like burnt coffee and toner and floor wax. She had a bad shoulder she didn't explain, and a legal pad she filled in a small, furious hand. She did not offer me tea. She did not say, "Oh, honey." She read my documentation folder for 11 straight minutes without saying a word, and then she looked up and said something I have repeated to about 40 people since. "You've been thinking about this as a family problem. Stop. It's a fraud with a family attached to it." I told her I wanted a restraining order. "You'll get one," she said, "and I want you to hear me clearly about what it is. It's paper. It does not stop a hand. What it does is make sure that when something happens, nobody in a courtroom gets to call it a misunderstanding." She tapped the folder. "The state doesn't care about your feelings, Sloan. It cares about a chain of custody. So you're going to build me one." She gave me a list. Cameras. Not the cheap kind, with a hard drive somebody can carry out under his arm. Cellular uplink, cloud storage, offsite, separate account, paid in cash so nobody in that family with access to a credit report could find the vendor. A doorbell unit covering the stairwell, an interior unit with a clean angle on the entry and the kitchen. And one more thing, which was hers, not mine, and which is the reason I'm not dead. Your smart speaker, she said. Set a duress phrase, something you'd never say by accident. Route it to emergency dispatch and record locally to the cloud at the same time. They'll take my hands, I said. She looked at me for a second. That's why it's a phrase, she said. They can't take your mouth. I filed the temporary restraining order Tuesday. Desmond was served Wednesday at the marina in front of 2 employees and a guy delivering shrink wrap. He called me 11 minutes later from a number I hadn't blocked. You served me? At my own yard? In front of my guys? Don't call this number again. Thursday, there was a note under my door. Not slid, jammed, hard enough to tear the corner. Brielle's handwriting, tight and fast. You have until Friday. Then it stops being about the paper. Friday, there was a dead Dungeness crab nailed to my door with a roofing nail through the carapace, at eye level, right above the peephole. Legs still moving in that slow post-mortem way they do. Somebody had spent real time on it. I photographed it. I bagged it. I wrote the date and time in marker on the outside of the bag, and I drove it to Odalis, and I want you to know I did not cry about that either. But I sat in my truck in her parking lot for 11 minutes with both hands on the wheel before I could go in. That weekend, I built my perimeter. I moved the 2 milk crates. I cleared the sightlines from the door to the kitchen so there was nothing to trip on and nothing to grab. I put the interior camera inside a wire mesh utility lamp on the shelf where it looked like a fixture. I wired the doorbell unit myself, covering the stairwell, the landing, and 11 feet of alley. I set the duress phrase, 3 words that would never come out of my mouth in ordinary conversation. Halyard, Halyard, Halyard. Say it, and the speaker dials county dispatch, opens a line, and pushes audio to the cloud simultaneously. I put my sidearm in the biometric safe in the bedroom, which is where the law and my own conscience say it belongs when you live alone above a public stairwell. Remember that, my friend, because it matters in about 9 minutes. And then I did the thing that later, in a courtroom, saved my life a second time. O'Dolly's told me a judge would eventually ask whether I'd tried to resolve it. So I offered once to meet. Not at my mother's house, not at the marina. In O'Dollis's conference room, with a court reporter present and a transcript. They didn't come. Brielle emailed that a neutral location was a hostile act. I want to be very clear, because I know what some of you are yelling at your phone right now. I never went back. Not to a Sunday dinner. Not to the marina. Not to Alameda Street. I did not walk into their house. There was no ambush meal. I made them come to me, on camera, in a building where I controlled the angles. They came on a Tuesday at 9:40 at night, in the rain. My phone buzzed at 9:31. Desmond. I let it go to voicemail, and then I played it standing in the middle of my kitchen with a dish towel over my shoulder. His voice was thick and slow, and I could hear a bar behind him. Brielle got a letter today from the U.S. Attorney's Office. You understand what that is? A long, wet breath. You got 10 minutes, Sloan. 10 minutes to call me and tell me you'll sign. Or, I'm coming over there and we're going to have the conversation Dad should have had with you a long time ago. I checked the camera feeds on my phone. Green, green, green. I checked the deadbolt. Then I stood in the short hallway between my kitchen and my bathroom, feet apart, weight on the balls of my feet, and I waited. Headlights swept the blinds at 9:38. I heard the suburban door. I heard 2 sets of feet on the stairs, one heavy and uneven, one light. I heard him hit the door with his shoulder, and I heard the frame hold. The second time he used the wrench. The strike plate came out of the jamb with a sound like a tree cracking, and a chunk of drywall came with it, and the door swung in and hit the wall so hard the knob punched a hole in the plaster. Desmond filled the doorway. Rain on his jacket, hair flat to his forehead, a 24-inch pipe wrench hanging from his right hand. And behind him on the landing, dry under an umbrella, my brother's wife. Halyard, I said. Halyard, Halyard, the speaker chirped. A woman's voice came up out of the counter, calm as a bank teller. County dispatch, what's the location of your emergency? Desmond's eyes went to the speaker, and I watched something in his face come apart, and then he charged. Here is what my family never understood about my job, my friend. I am an aviation survival technician. When a person is drowning, they do not go quietly. A drowning man is the most dangerous thing in the water, because he will climb you like a ladder and push you under to get one more breath. They train us for that. They train us for 180 pounds of pure panic wrapping around your neck in 48-degree water at 2 in the morning. And they teach us that you do not meet strength with strength. You go where the strength isn't. He swung the wrench in the hallway. The hallway was 34 inches wide. The head caught the corner of the wall and tore a gouge out of the drywall, and the swing died. I got inside it, past the arc, close, and put my shoulder into his chest. He dropped the wrench. It rang on the floor. And then all 240 pounds of my brother hit me. And I want to be honest with you, he got me. He got a fist into my hair and slammed the side of my head into the doorframe, and my vision went white and gray at the edges, and I went down on the tile. His knee came into my back. His weight came down on my hips. His hand found my right wrist, the hand from when I was 17. The hand he already knew how to break, and he twisted it up between my shoulder blades until something in it gave, and I heard myself make a sound I have never made before or since. And in the doorway, Brielle stepped out of the rain, closed her umbrella, and set it neatly against my wall. She did not scream. She did not pull at him. She said, in that patient green bean voice, "You should have just signed it, Sloan. Nobody wanted it to go this far." And she raised her phone. The pipe wrench was 2 feet from my left hand. He was too heavy to buck, and my right arm was useless behind me. So I stopped fighting the weight. You cannot fight the weight. You never fight the weight. And I got one boot flat against the base of the cabinet, and I turned my hips. That's all it is. 12 inches of rotation. His center of gravity went off the edge of mine, and he tipped, and I came around underneath him and got my left forearm across the back of his neck and my legs where they needed to be, and I put my brother face down on my kitchen floor and held him there. He bellowed into the tile. He bucked twice. He couldn't get his hands under himself. "Stop moving," I said. "Desmond, stop moving or you're going to hurt your shoulder." I was still holding him when the sirens came up the alley. My friend, if you are listening right now and you know what it is to have somebody who shares your last name stand there filming while another one of them tries to end you, put the word "done" in the comments. Just that. Let me see how many of us there are. Hit that like button and stay right here, because what my brother's wife did in the next 90 seconds is worse than anything he did with that wrench. The first deputy through my broken door found a 240-pound man face down on the floor and a 140-pound woman on top of him. You already know what that looks like. Off him. Off him. Hands. Hands where I can see them. I let go. I put my palms flat on the tile and my forehead down. Somebody put a knee between my shoulder blades, and my broken hand got wrenched around behind me a second time in 6 minutes, and I stopped being able to see for a while. And Brielle, dry, composed, purse still on her shoulder, was already talking. She attacked him. She attacked him. Oh my God, she's military. She's not stable. She's been threatening us for weeks. She filed a false restraining order to set this up. They cuffed me on my own kitchen floor with my brother's blood on the tile from where his lip split, and they walked me down my own stairwell in the rain in a gray PT shirt and no shoes, and I sat in the back of a county car for 40 minutes with my hand swelling against steel and my brother sitting on the tailgate of an ambulance with a blanket around his shoulders while his wife rubbed his back. That is the moment, my friend. Not the wrench. That one. Because I did everything right. I filed. I documented. I never went back. I fought and I won, and I still ended up in handcuffs while the 2 people who forged my name stood in the rain being comforted. And I remember looking up through that cage window at my apartment, at the light spilling out of my broken doorway, and thinking about a wire mesh lamp on a shelf with a small dark lens in it. At 11:20 that night, a woman in a wet raincoat and reading glasses arrived at the county sheriff's office and asked the duty sergeant a single question. "Has anyone pulled the cloud files yet? Or should I have my client's server administrator send them directly to the district attorney tonight?" I was out at 1:15 in the morning. No charges. Odalis drove me to Columbia Memorial herself and sat in the plastic chair beside me while they set 2 bones in my right hand, and I want you to know that she still did not say, "Oh, honey." She said, "You did it exactly right. Now we bury them." 2 days later, a Coast Guard Investigative Service special agent named Terrence Nakamura came to my apartment with a ruggedized tablet and asked to sit down. He put the tablet on my counter and turned it toward me. The interior camera had a clean, wide, unblinking angle. It caught the door coming apart. It caught the wrench. It caught the swing, the gouge in the drywall, the whole thing from the first splinter to the moment I put him down. Time-stamped, cloud sealed. 3 redundant copies. But the audio, my friend, the audio is what finished them. Because the smart speaker had opened a line at 9 hours, 38 minutes, and 41 seconds. And County Dispatch had been recording continuously, and 41 seconds into that call, at a volume that made the agent turn the tablet's speaker down, my sister-in-law's voice said clearly, "You should have just signed it, Sloan. Nobody wanted it to go this far." And then, 11 seconds after that, while I was on the floor and my brother had my wrist behind my back, Brielle's voice again, closer to the phone, quieter, the sentence that turned a family fight into a conspiracy case. "Don't kill her, Des. She has to be able to hold a pen." Agent Nakamura let it play. Then he stopped it and folded the cover shut with a snap. 22 years I've worked service member financial exploitation, he said. I've never had one on tape. The trial was in Clatsop County Circuit Court, and it ran 9 days. The prosecution went first, which is how it works. The state carries the burden, and the state opens. Their case was 3 days of paper. The notary log, the 91-day patrol schedule that put me 400 miles offshore on the date of the forged signature, the credit union's fraud referral, the ship's duty log, the strip mall power of attorney, with its single, limited paragraph about one green truck. Then the defense had their turn, and I sat there in my tropical blues, with my right hand still in a brace, and I listened to a man in a good suit explain to 12 strangers who I really was. He called me a trained combat asset. He said the words, post-traumatic, 11 times. He said that my brother, a small business owner and a father of 2, had gone to his sister's apartment to have a difficult family conversation, and had encountered a young woman conditioned by the federal government to respond to stress with violence, and that the injuries to Mr. Marchetti's face were, and I'm quoting, disproportionate and revealing. I didn't shake my head. I didn't look at the jury. Odalis had told me, let them build it as high as they want. The higher they build it, the farther it falls. On day 6, she stood up, buttoned her jacket, and asked to publish State's Exhibit 14. The bailiff dimmed the lights. They watched my door explode inward. They watched the wrench swing and bite the wall. They watched a man twice my weight put my face into a doorframe. There was a juror in the second row, a heavy-set guy in a fishing company windbreaker, who put his hand over his mouth and left it there for the whole thing. Odalise let it run in silence. Then she said, Your Honor, may we have the dispatch audio? And Brielle's voice came out of 2 speakers into a silent courtroom. Nobody wanted it to go this far. Don't kill her, Des. She has to be able to hold a pen. I have been in a helicopter cabin at night in a 40-knot wind, and I have never heard a sound like the one that courtroom made. The heavy-set juror said something out loud. The judge didn't even gavel him. Desmond went the color of wet paper. Brielle sat very still and looked at her hands, and did not stop looking at them for the rest of the day. And in the gallery, second row, my mother. She had come every single day and sat behind the defense table in a navy dress with a good purse in her lap, a wall of blood in a room full of strangers. And when Brielle's voice said she has to be able to hold a pen, my mother's mouth opened and she did not close it for a long time. Odalise called her on day 7. She did not ask my mother about the loan. She asked her about an emergency room intake form from 11 years earlier, State's Exhibit 31. And she asked my mother to read the reported mechanism of injury aloud to the jury. My mother's voice came out of that microphone very small. Patient reports right hand caught in a truck door. Was that true, Mrs. Marchetti? The pause went on so long, the judge leaned toward her. It was what needed to be said, my mother answered. Odalise let that sit for about 4 seconds, which is a very long time, and then she said, no further questions. The verdicts came back on a Thursday afternoon. Desmond Marchetti, attempted murder, first-degree burglary, coercion, felony assault. 22 years. No possibility of early release under the state's measure. They put the cuffs on him at the defense table, and the sound of that ratchet is a sound I will hear until I die. Brielle Marchetti, convicted as a principal, not an accessory conspiracy to commit fraud, aggravated identity theft, forgery, unlawful notarization, and initiating a false report to a peace officer. 9 years custodial. She did not walk out of that building. Her notary commission was revoked from the bench. My mother was never charged. I want to tell you the truth about that, because I know a lot of you wanted to sell for her, and I understand why. She wasn't charged. But she was named in open court, on the record, as an unindicted co-conspirator in the misuse of a power of attorney belonging to a deployed service member. The transcript is public. Her name is in it. The credit union sent her a letter. The church sent her a different kind of letter. And when the verdict on Brielle was read, my mother stood up in the gallery and screamed that I had destroyed this family, and a bailiff took her by the elbow and walked her out through the double doors while 300 people watched. For a woman who spent 40 years managing what the neighbors thought, that was worse than any sentence a judge could have handed down. I stopped at the back of the aisle on my way out and looked at the doors she'd gone through. She never came back in. She has not called. That's been 2 years. 6 weeks after the trial, a cream-colored envelope came to my new address in Kodiak. 2 pages. I read the first paragraph standing at the kitchen counter, and the small, stupid, hopeful thing that lives in every one of us, the part that is 9 years old forever, sat up in my chest and then lay back down and died. She didn't ask about my hand. She wrote about how hard it had been for her, about the incident, which is a word people use when they need a felony to be a weather event. She said involving federal agents was an overreaction. She said Desmond's boys ask where their dad is. She said the yard had to be sold. And then the last line, I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive, so this family can go back to being what it was. Back to being what it was. Back to being the one who takes the injury and reports the truck door. Back to being the collateral. That is not forgiveness, my friend. That is a demand that I swallow the poison quietly, so the people who poured it don't have to watch me get sick. I didn't answer it. There is no argument you can win against somebody who is committed to not knowing. I folded the letter in half and pressed the crease flat with my thumb. I opened my father's wooden box, the one with the cracked shadow box glass I never replaced, because I decided I wanted to remember it cracked, and I laid her letter inside. Next to his folded flag and the brass whistle with the dent in it, I closed the lid. The latch went down with a sound like a door in a hull compartment. 14 months later, I'm standing in front of 80 people in a training bay in Kodiak, Alaska, with the heaters roaring and everybody's dry suits sweating on the racks behind them. They think I'm there to teach hypothermic rescue. I teach them hypothermic rescue. I teach them how long a body has in 50-degree water and how to bring a panicked adult to a basket without letting him kill you both. And then I changed the slide. Because the transcript from Clatsop County didn't stay in Clatsop County, legal got hold of it. The service turned my worst night into a training module, and there is a checklist now that every single member gets handed at pre-deployment briefing, and it is 1 page long, and it has a line on it about limited powers of attorney and expiration dates and revocation, and I wrote 4 of the questions on it myself. Here's what I tell them, and it's the same thing I'm telling you. The ocean is honest. The ocean will kill you, but it will never tell you it loves you first. What will take your rank, your credit, your health, and 11 years of your life is a person at a kitchen table with a pen and your last name. An enemy shoots at you. Your family gets you to sign. Last month, after the brief, a 19-year-old seaman apprentice from Bakersfield waited by the door until the bay cleared out. Big kid. Hands shaking. "Petty officer," he said. "My stepdad's on my account. He's got a POA. He said it was for if I got hurt. Is it dated? I don't know. Go find out. Tonight. Then go to legal in the morning and revoke it, and change your direct deposit while you're standing there." He nodded about 6 times too many. And then he said, "He's gonna say I don't trust him." "You don't," I said. "That's not an accusation. That's just information." He laughed, and it cracked in the middle, and he went and did it. That's the whole thing. That's why I told you all of this. A judge put my brother in a cell, and that mattered. But that is not what set me free, my friend. What set me free was one word in my own kitchen, said out loud, into a room where somebody was finally listening. Blood gave me a name. It never gave anybody a lien on my life. If this story reached you, if you're sitting there right now with somebody's name on your account, or somebody's voice in your head telling you that saying no makes you the villain, put "no more" in the comments below and claim it. Like this video so it finds the next person who needs it. Subscribe, because there are others out there like us, and I'm going to keep telling their stories too. Thank you for staying with me all the way to the end.